Why your high ticket coaching program is failing with special guest Matt Johnston on today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Pro Writing Aid. Every word I write needs to be perfect. One typo in an email and I get dozens of replies pointing it out and saying, "Thought you're an author." That's why I trust Pro Writing Aid. I have every plugin and feature they offer to check my blog posts and when I'm writing offline. No other tool even comes close. Score a lifetime license at servemaster.com/Pro Writing Aid.
Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss and start living your retirement dreams now, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Serve No Master Podcast, where you'll learn how to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host.
Now, Matt, I really appreciate you spending some time today because this is a topic near and dear to my heart. And a lot of people try to sell high ticket coaching, especially over the past few years. I noticed that the day after people would lose their job or get locked down during the COVID times, they were on Clubhouse saying they were a coach, like day one coach, a COVID coach. And so many people jumped into the market without really understanding that there's a little bit more to it than that. So let's start with a baseline. What is your definition of high ticket when someone thinks of high ticket coaching? What's the real number?
I would say the absolute baseline is like $3,000 product. I define it as, do you need a sales call to sell this? That for me would be, it's getting lower every year, but I'd say maybe 3,000.
Because yeah, that's a really great place to start from. So a lot of people then are thinking about becoming coaches, and there's all these certifications and processes and different coaching systems. And it's like, sometimes people come to me and go, "Oh, I have a certification from this place." And well, I've never heard of it. So it doesn't make me want to work with them anymore because it's not a brand or a coaching product that I know anything about. So when someone's thinking about high ticket coaching, or maybe we could start from this, what are the biggest mistakes you see people make when they decide to launch a high ticket coaching program?
Well, I think the number one biggest mistake they make is they build it before they sell it. So a lot of coaches, they say, "Oh, well, I'm creating a coaching business, so I need to build a curriculum." Just like if I start a laundromat, I got to have a laundromat before I can get the customers. Well, luckily, in the info space, we don't have to build the laundromat first. We can first test our marketing to make sure that it's going to resonate. Because I have talked to some people that have said, "Oh, I've spent a year, 2 years building this curriculum and making it a world-class curriculum. And I started selling it and now nobody's buying it. What do I do?" And that's the biggest mistake that they just haven't market tested it at all. And they haven't been able to adapt it to the market. So it wouldn't get results anyway. So that's the biggest one. It's the biggest mistake.
Yeah, that resonates with me because I worked with a lot of product creators and they come to me with these ideas. And I say, "Well, how do you know anyone wants that?" I remember, this is my favorite story, a few years, 5 or 6 years ago, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I just created an entire program on how to quit vaping." And I said, "Wow, I didn't even know that was a market. How did you find out there's all these people trying to quit vaping?" He's like, "Oh, no, I just kind of had the idea." I said, "Oh, wait."
Right.
And of course, maybe in 20 years, it'll be like ahead of its time. But I don't know anyone who's trying to quit vaping right now, right? Everyone's switching to vaping. It's the wrong time. It's like trying to tell people to quit smoking in the 50s. It's the wrong time for it. And
right.
People put in there's this idea, right, that you can create a curriculum without any interactivity. Every time I work with a coaching client, what they want is not what I thought it, right? There's this part where they say, "No, what I really want to learn from you is X." And that interactivity is such a critical part of figuring out what people want for you, figuring out your pricing structure. And it's very strange to me when someone has like a coach program set in stone and I say, "Well, how many people have you worked with?" Because I modify or I adjust because people go, "Jonathan, I don't have this problem. I have that problem." And I can't go, "Well, that's not this week's lesson," right? You can't say that because then they're going to jump ship. But it's often the unexpected. And that's why even with my lower ticket programs, I teach them live because the questions help me make it a better program. The things that are hard for me are very rarely the things that are hard for my students. And so if I just focus on what's hard for me and say, "This is the hard part," they go, "Oh no, we get that. But this part is different for us." So I think you're onto something there. What's another thing where people get stuck? What's another mistake they make? Maybe it's in pricing.
Yeah. Well, one mistake that people make is that they think that this is pretty common, is that people think that they want to sell courses and they don't realize they should be sell coaching programs. They may look at themselves like a course Or they may look at themselves like a coach, but then they're like, so I'm going to make this course and then I'm going to put people through it and I'm going to charge like $197 for it. And the thing is, it's just as hard to get a $197 sale as it is to get a $5,000 sales call booked on your calendar. And there's better results, which is not to say that courses shouldn't exist, but people rarely do them. And one of the issues that happens is that they just don't get the results because of that. And they're just as hard to sell. So if you're able to support your students and be an actual coach, you're going to get better results. It's going to be a better product. You're going to be on sales calls frequently, which is going to give you a feedback loop to be able to make the program better and then make the marketing better and make the sales of this product better. And you can scale it up even more. And obviously you make much more money much faster, but you also have more impact. That's another big mistake that I see folks make. Or they also they get too hung up on the curriculum. Like anybody that's been in like a mastermind or a high ticket coaching program knows that the curriculum is like it's barely a thing. I mean, every single student I've ever had in my high ticket coaching programs and every high ticket coaching program I've been a part of, the biggest breakthrough moments, the best results have all come on the calls. They've come from the mentor or they've happened within the community. So let's not be so curriculum focused. That's like an old school, like we all went to college and are still trying to figure out how to make these things work together type of way of looking at things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I come from the product creation world, and there's this tendency to think that bigger is better. And as I've pulled back, right, over the years, I've been doing this for 12 years and switched from, hey, there's 67 training videos. Now, when I hear that from someone else's course, I go, I don't have that kind of time. It sounds like so much work. Now, instead, when I sell my high ticket programs, again, in the multi-thousand range, it starts off with, here's the 6 things we're going to learn. What day of the week are the lessons? Doesn't matter, right? How long lessons? Doesn't matter. We're going to get through these 6 hurdles, however long it takes, right? That's the process. And that sells so much better for me. Learning less is more, because it's switching from the here's all you get to the problem solution has really made a difference for me, and realizing that's what we really buy is the solution to our problems. Nobody wants to hire a coach. What we really want to do is fix a specific problem. And I think this is the problem in the coaching area. I often, I work with lots and lots of people who are coaches, and I say, why is this the thing you do? Why is this the area of coaching you do? And oftentimes there's not really a reason. And it can be, or they haven't really thought about it from the mindset of what do people want to pay for? What do people want to buy? What's the solution they're really looking for, the problem that you solve? And if it's not really a problem, I see so many people that are like, I help you turn your dreams into reality. I don't know what that means, right? These ephemeral promises, especially if you look at every LinkedIn profile, right? I help you like accelerate your business, or I help you untie these things, but it's so vague, or it's these words, like buzzwords that have no meaning. That is where I get lost. And I was also thinking about what you said a moment ago, not to jump around, is that I think the biggest barrier for everyone is the call. I think that's why people do products instead of anything else, is they're so afraid of getting on the phone that it's just like everyone I work with, whenever I talk about, I'll do anything to not have to do phone calls. I'm like, you have to talk to them eventually, right? Like you can't never talk to your customers, but why is getting on the phone?
That's the mark of who's going to be successful versus who's not going to be successful. Like people used to, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then into the early 2000s, the people that didn't want to do that work didn't start businesses. And so that's just how it worked, right? If you don't want to do the work of an entrepreneur, then that's not going to happen. But then there were all these success stories when the internet first happened of people selling $300, $400, $500, up to $1,000, $2,000, even sometimes products without ever doing a sales call and just selling them through ads on autopilot, that it became like, oh, this is something that I can build. It is astronomically difficult to sell anything over honestly, these days, I feel like with the skepticism and consumer confidence where it is now, like over $500, you're having a hard time. But yeah, that's the problem. And I would say, listen, like you just got to get over it. You got to get over it because people are not buying your thing. As you said, I work mainly with creatives, people that are trying to build a business doing creative work, and they're focused on their creative work. So they think that, oh, I do a design or I create a video. I work with a lot of filmmakers. I create a video, and that video is my product, and that's what they're going to buy. But you'll never sell anything that way, right? Like they don't want the video. They want what the video is going to get them. They want what's on the other side of it. If they could just skip to the result, they would just get the result and just skip the video altogether. So you need to learn how to sell that. And the same goes when you're looking at high ticket products, right? If you are just relying on a landing page to sell your thing, number one, you're going to have to charge way less. And number two, like, you're not going to be able to actually know what this person wants. What is their dream? Like, what do they actually want to achieve? What's the main problem that they have? You got to get on the phone with them. You got to get over it. But I don't want to pretend that it's easy. Sales is hard. And like, it took me hundreds of calls to get anywhere near decent at it. It's really hard and it's nerve-wracking and it's emotionally draining. But do you want to be an entrepreneur or not? That's my sort of hard-nosed approach to it, right? That's how I feel about it, especially in this economy and the way ads are now and everything. It's just, that's the reality.
Yeah, I think that there's so much advertising that's push button this and click button that people think it's easy, that there's no hard work part. And so when they start doing calls, they want to get good fast. And you're not like, oh, I'm going to master phone calls in 1 week. It's like, I wish. That sounds amazing. But any skill, right? No one learns how to ride a bike in 3 tries. But there's such this, I think in our culture, it should be easier. I'm going to quit if it's easy. I'm working with a part of my team. They're in their 20s. They're doing a ton of calls now, selling their first product. They're doing like 50 calls a week. And they're like, oh, we only sold 11 this week. I'm like, guys, you did over $20,000 in 1 week and you're 22. That's amazing. Like, you're doing really, really good. And then, oh, we had a down week. We only did 10 grand. I'm like, consistency is not there. It takes time to develop a skill, but there's this belief, right? Oh, that the first week we sell 10, then the next week we'll sell 10. I'm like, there's 2 different things, right? Hitting 10 and then consistently hitting 10 are not the same skill. And there's a lot of learning, because sometimes you just have a bunch of people that are ready to buy no matter what, right? And you just have a great week. And sometimes you just have a tough week, but it's the keep getting back up, keep doing the calls. That's so hard. And people expect it to be a short learning curve. And I think that's why there's people that are professional phone sellers, right? Because they put in hundreds and hundreds of calls to get there. That's why that skill exists. So it's that other thing you think.
But it's also mindset, as you said. Yeah. Because even if you're really good at it, 70% of people are going to say no. And that's the real skill. How do you get up after,
Yeah, I think the hard part is that there's an emotional attachment to a rejection, right?
Of course.
Like when I was younger,
difficult.
I did phone sales for a large computer company. So I took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls, right? So it helped me to get over that thing, because at least they were calling inbound, right? But there's this feeling of, oh, they didn't buy it. They've rejected me as a human being. And it's like, that's not, we like make it bigger than it is. And it's hard. Oh, that call, I thought it was going to happen, didn't happen. And then getting on the next call, it's like instead of starting at 0, you start like -1 or -2. I think the emotional part is the hardest part for people, especially when it's your own product, then it's like really is there. It feels like they're judging you. And it can be, I think that's the hardest place, because you go, oh, I got into this business because I want to coach, not because I want to sell coaching. Right. Like, I think that's the other thing, is that there's this hurdle there that we're all looking for a shortcut around, right? Oh, maybe if I just have a webinar, I don't have to do the phone call, right? Or maybe if I do this shortcut or that shortcut. We're all trying to avoid that, but it feels like it's the mandatory step, if you will. It's like the one step.
Well, that's the other piece of it. Like, I talked to so many people, and listen, I've done this too. I've made this mistake. You're just like, you don't want to do it, because I find sales calls to be emotionally draining. That's just how it is. Like, I pour myself out there. Like, that's my job, is to sell. Right. But they just want to they're like, how fast can I get to a sales rep? Or I'm selling a high ticket program. I need to hire somebody to do sales. That is the fastest way to lose tons of money really fast, especially if you were selling it well. Like, as soon as, like, you cannot hire a rep on until you're ready. If you've been doing sales successfully, you cannot hire a rep on until you are like financially ready to drop at least 30% in sales month to month, like at the beginning, while they're figuring out how to do this, because nobody's going to sell it as well as you. And if you've never sold it and you're just giving it to a rep, that's the fastest way to make a high ticket coaching program crash and burn from the outset, in my opinion. I think you need to do your own sales. If you don't do your own sales, you can never have somebody do sales for you, because you won't be able to coach them. You're going to be like, hey, why aren't you selling as well anymore? And they're going to be like, I don't know. Everything seems fine. It must be the leads. And then you're like, oh, it must be the leads, right? Because you won't know what they're doing. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. You're totally right about that.
No, that's my favorite line from Glengarry Glen Ross. When he's like, "The leads are weak. You're weak." I always think
I don't remember that line, but I love that.
that's Alec Baldwin, because he goes, "The leads are weak."
Yeah, that's great.
I love that. And he goes, "First place is a brand new BMW. Second place is some steak knives. Third place is you're fired." Because
I forgot about that.
And that's like a 40-year-old, 30, 40-year-old woman. That's the excuse that's been going around forever.
Yeah.
Is that the leads are weak, the leads are bad. And it does happen sometimes, right? Like when I was selling on the phone and I had to work during the Super Bowl, the calls that came in were the worst, right? People that are calling during a holiday, those tend not to be the best calls. Those are the toughest days, but there are still sales in there. But it can be, once it's not your fault, then you can't fix it. And I think that's the most important lesson about coaching or sales or anything, is that as soon as it's not your fault, then you can't fix it. You give away your power to fix it. And I also, we talked a lot about phones. I do love this topic, but I also want to get some exciting topics for coaches, which is there's such a market out there for coaches teaching coaches how to be coaches. And I used to go to a lot of conferences and I would meet people like, "What do you do?" "Oh, I coach coaches on how to coach other coaches." And I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a real thing. Like that sounds like an imaginary job, right? Like it's a pretend job. But there's so many people that have created this. And then I guess, I can't coach someone unless I have a coach mindset comes out there. I've always been at the bottom of a direct result thing, right? Like I help people to write their book. So if the book doesn't get written, right, there's a measurable, either the result happened or it didn't. But there's this whole world of immeasurable results, right? Like I help you coach, but are you a better coach by help? Nobody can tell. That I wonder if people like at the 1 or 2 level of coaching are starting to get pulled into something they don't need to be a part of. I don't understand like life coaching certifications. There's so many, or this and that. Let's be honest. You don't know where I went to college and you don't care. It's either I can give a good interview with you or not, right? It's either I can coach well or not. It's not about where I went to high school or what my favorite color is. And so I wonder, the secondary market that's created has become a distraction. It almost means, oh, I have to make more money as a coach, charge more as a coach, because I have to pay my super coach these additional fees to learn these additional skills, which I don't know that they're necessary. I wondered your thought on that, because you're a little deeper in this market than I am.
Here's what I would say. Never pay somebody to be a better coach. If you really don't know how to coach, you probably shouldn't. You're probably not an expert, and you probably you shouldn't be delivering this service. And if that's a problem, we need to go back to square one. Don't buy that. However, I do think coaches who teach you, and it's hard because there's so many and it's easy to be skeptical, and you should be. Coaches that teach you how to get coaching clients, there is value there, of course, because a lot of people that are subject matter experts are not so much like me and you. Like I teach high ticket coaching programs. Specifically, I help filmmakers grow their businesses and creatives grow their businesses. But I'm way more of a marketer than I have been like anything else, like over time, right? I'm a subject matter expert as well, and I've done all the things, but I'm a marketer. So it's easier for me to plug into these things. And I'm still in a very high level mastermind to help me with strategies to market and sell my coaching services. But that's what you need, right? So you have a lot of subject matter experts. Oh, I'm a relationship coach, and I'm great at that. Or I'm like a really good, I don't know, like any consumer based thing, right? I help people deal with grief. I help people deal with divorce. I help people deal with legal frameworks. I help people deal with custody battle, and whatever it is. Those people are now marketers. Like they really truly are subject matter experts that can help many more people at scale if they were to sell a high ticket coaching program, which is what business should be. Business should exist to solve problems in amazing ways. They don't know how to market and sell what they do. They just, because like a lot of them had a private practice before or something, and people would just come to them through just word of mouth, and that was fine because they had a smaller business. So I would say, yeah, to answer your question, don't hire somebody to be a better coach. That's a marker that you probably shouldn't start that business right now. But do hire someone to help you learn how to get leads as a coach, because that's ever evolving and changing. You just need to be super clear about who you hire to do that. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer because when I think about all the programs I've seen, some are like, oh, here's how to create a coaching curriculum. I've seen a load of those, but here's how to get more clients. And that's, I think, a lot more valuable, especially if you're a subject matter expert. But
Yeah, because your business doesn't exist without clients. So
yeah,
it doesn't matter how good a coach you are.
I think a lot of people have fallen into the if you build it, they will come trap. Like you build that was a field of dreams, right? Oh, I'll just build the
Yeah.
business. I'll just put the shingle on my door and people will find me. And it's unfortunately not true. It's really hard to find. Even when you're looking for something specific, it's so hard to find that specific thing because there's just so many people in the market. And there are so many people that have decided the coaching thing they're going to sell before anyone has said they need it. Like I remember someone a few years ago, I was asking someone, I was like, how did you decide to become this kind of coach? And why did you become a coach? He's like, I didn't become a coach. The people demanded it. And I was like, but you don't have any clients. Why would you say that? That's a crazy person thing to say. The people didn't demand it. There's no one there demanding.
What people?
Like, I think maybe people think coaching is easy, which it's not. Like I wish it was, but it's unless you don't care about your customers or clients at all, like it's you're invested in their results and you're invested in what's happening in their lives and you become like pretty connected. So I think that there's this, it pulls people in because they think, oh, it's the easiest way to make money online because you get paid at the beginning of the work, not the end, right? You get paid at the start, not at the end of the process. And I get it. Like it sounds easy, but there's exactly these other parts to it. So I'm very interested that you specifically coach creatives. I've never met someone who does that before. So it's very interesting because I grew up and the idea was, oh, you can either have a job or be a starving artist. Like the idea of an artist who wasn't starving is something that I've never heard of, right? And now there's so many things artists and creatives can do that are amazing. And often when I talk to people that do, one of my previous employees asked me to talk to her partner, who was a boy, and he's a videographer guy in Australia. And he was talking about, well, I don't even know what I would do. And I was like, there's 10 different ways you can have a business. You can make music videos. You can edit people's videos. You can help people edit their TikToks or YouTubes. And these are completely different jobs. You can be an After Effects person, right? Who helps people do that starting thing. I know there's people that just do, what is it, the beginning of the movie, right? Where it says the credits. Like that's a job. They're completely different skill sets. And it's so often that people don't realize that they're very, very different skill sets. Like you can't just be a videographer because editing a music video is not the same as editing a movie, right? It's different. Or editing a TikTok video, you got 7 seconds to work with. That's a whole different game. And so how do you help people? Like where does it start with when you're working with creatives and how did that kind of become your passion? It's very interesting to me.
I mean, that's my background. I'm 41 now, getting up there. But all through my 20s, I was starving artist guy. I was directing plays in New York City, off Broadway, being starving artist guy, having a day job. I understand that mentality. But then I continued to I sort of leveraged that into online video, and I started running a bunch of online video programs, like in journalism. Like I ran New York Magazine's video program and Men's Health and all these. So that was just my background. That's how I got into it. But I think the real truth here is that the creator economy is nuts right now. Like it's absolutely nuts. If you're out there and you have a creative skill set and you're thinking about yourself as a starving artist, like, come on, give me a break. Like that's you shooting yourself in the foot. There are people that will pay a heck of a lot of money for you to design something for them. Even if you're not that good, they'll pay you a heck of a lot of money to design something in Canva for them because they can't be bothered, you know? But video is an asset that, I mean, there's different levels of awareness, right? Obviously, marketing 101 is meet them where they are. So we have to know how problem aware someone is and how solution aware they are. So 10 years ago, if you're selling video as a service, for example, you may have to go out and help someone see that this is the solution to the problem that they have. They just don't see it. They can't connect the dots. And this is true for designers. This is true for all creatives right now. This is this amazing time where the entire potential market is very problem aware and very solution aware. So you don't even have to work as hard to make them see that video will solve their problems or design will solve their problems. They know because they see their competitors being more spending more money on ads, spending more money on creative, and that's creating awareness that's driving them well ahead of the game, you know? And this is an amazing time. But of course, the problem is a lot of creatives don't understand how to draw that line. They don't understand how to sell. They don't understand how to get there. And they don't have any idea how valuable they are because they don't understand how business works. So they don't really understand that there are small businesses out there, like millions of them, that are out there just banging on doors, begging for better creative because their TikTok ads have a lower ROAS this week and they're desperate for different creative out there, right? So yeah, I just think it's a watershed moment for creative because of the creator economy, because of the rise of social media, and specifically for video, because now social media marketing has turned into 70 to 80% video marketing. Really, it's all video now. So you're as in demand as ever. It's easier to sell than ever. This is the time. This is the moment to build this. If you can open your mind. My job, and this is a marketing thing for me, is that they often don't see, like, filmmakers, designers, I mostly work with filmmakers, like, or video pros, videographers. They don't see that. They don't see that potential, really. Like, they don't see it yet. My job is to help them see the opportunity because they don't understand the opportunity. It's not like shooting fish in a barrel, but it's almost like feeding a hungry person a sandwich. And like, that is not a difficult thing to sell if you know what you're doing and you know how to generate those leads. I think it's a great time to be building a creative business, but they have to stop looking at themselves as starving artists. That's the struggle. That's the struggle. Most artists look at themselves like non-for-profits, and that's the problem. You know, like, I do this because it's important, but that's not necessarily true. There's a whole economy out there that has billions of dollars just waiting to pay you. And moving into a recession, it's actually even better. It's even better opportunity, honestly.
I work with a lot of writers, and it's very similar. Like, some of
Totally.
they come to me and they go, listen, I'm going to write a children's book, an erotic novel, a book of poetry, and a book about space. I was like, well, the same people aren't going to read all those, right? And you're already like, you're not, anyone who sees your like author bio is going to go, well, this doesn't make sense. And there is this, sometimes people come to me like, I would only publish a book with a traditional publisher. And I'm like, how long have you been waiting? Like 10 years. I was like, how much longer are you going to wait? Right? Like, once they've created this rule in their mind, I would never directly publish. I don't want people to find my book unless I've read tens of thousands of books. I've never looked at the back of the book to see who the publisher was before I bought it. It's never crossed my mind. Like, oh, this is with Doubletree. I'm not reading one of their books, right? It's got to be with, I don't know, Wyatt, whatever. I can't even think of another Wyatt, whatever. Then but we create these artificial rules, or, oh, I would never write something for hire because I'm too good for that. And it's like,
There's also just a lot of advice out there. Like, there's just a lot of people. I'm on so many sales calls where people are like, I heard that I should be doing this, you know, like, as a tactic to fix their problem. There's just so much advice out there, and it's mostly garbage.
Yeah, there's all these people. Like, it's more common in screenwriting. It's really bad. There's like script coaches. How many movies have you written? No, I don't write movies. I coach writing movies. It's like, well, I see a lot of that, or you have to pay someone a bunch to read your script. And I get that. Like, I don't read books anymore now unless someone's paying me. But I've also written 300 bestsellers. Like, you can see them. I linked to dozens of them. I have that. I think it's so important. And I go, if you don't like the style of book I write, don't hire me. Like, you need to know who you're working with. But there is this flood of advice, and people never ask the second question: who is the person I'm getting advice from? It's like when you get the advice, you should never start a business. Like, how many businesses have you started? None, because I know it's a bad idea that you haven't done it.
Because they're desperate to solve the problem. And that's a great position to be in, to sell to those people, of course. But that makes it, that's also breeded like an enormous amount of skepticism, because lots of people spend a lot of money on things that won't get them results because it's all marketing and nothing else, right? Which is why we would all just be better off if people that couldn't coach didn't start coaching businesses. So maybe that's where we come back to.
I guess that's kind of what I was getting to at the very beginning. There's so many people that say they're coaches, and then you can't figure out, and it's hard when you're just a consumer, right? And you're just talking to someone on the phone, or you just saw someone's website, to really tell someone who knows what they're doing from someone who doesn't. And like, my job when I'm recommending people, right, or choosing people to interview, like, I can tell someone's, because I've been around long enough, I have a sniff test that the average consumer doesn't. But there are certain markets where I can't. And so I don't talk about those markets. I'm not very good at investing or turning silver and gold and like those markets. I wouldn't be able to tell someone who's kind of BSing about gold. I just wouldn't, because I don't know a lot about it. But coaching and course creation, that is my area of expertise. So that's something that the average consumer can't. And so how can someone who's thinking about hiring a coach, what are the things they should ask, or the sniff test they should operate, or what are the signs they show, oh, this person's okay, or this is not someone I should hire coaching from? Like, what should they look for from the consumer side?
That's a really good question. I've never really thought about that before. If we're just being honest here, I mean, you obviously want to look for results. So that's the biggest thing, is social proof. So have they solved, like, is there a track record of helping people solve that exact problem? This, of course, creates a chicken and egg problem for new coaches because they don't have any results, but they might be very good. And that's just what it is. There are, of course, ways to get those sort of results that you can put places where you don't have to get your first coaching client to do it. But so that's the first thing. Have other people that have had my problem gotten that problem solved directly through this? So that's probably a question that I would ask. Probably, I think it's important to know what kind of coaching you're going to get. I think that so I often ask this question when I've joined programs in the past. I never get this question, but I should probably. So I'm joining a group coaching program, right? Okay. Or I'm joining a mastermind. What kind of coaching am I going to get? You know, is it going to be personalized coaching? Do I show up and is it going to be like a lecture that I go to? Am I going to actually get questions answered directly from that coach? How much time are they going to spend with me? That kind of thing. That's probably a question that you should ask, because the best results come from the direct interaction with the mentor. So you should probably know what kind of line you have to the mentor. You obviously can't have an expectation of completely personalized coaching, because if you wanted to pay that rate, there's probably a way you can pay 4 times what you're paying now to get one-on-one coaching. But from a group coaching aspect, it's good to know. Like, for example, like I've been in coaching programs where like it's a lecture, right? And that's mostly what it is. Like it's a lecture and then there's community interaction in the group, right? I run mine differently. Like I run mine sort of more like individual personalized coaching sessions within the group so that people can hear me solve people's individual problems and they can learn from that. But so they get one-on-one, like customized advice, but they just get it in front of the group, but they do get my like direct time and attention. I feel like that's like the best way you could possibly do it. The only issue with that, of course, is it's harder to do at scale, but yeah, that's another business question. But you can probably run that up to a pretty good amount of students, which is why you have to charge more. if you're charging $300 a month, or sorry, $300 flat out, or even $1,000 or even $2,000, it's just not going to work out for you. So that's the next question I would ask, I guess. Those are the only things that come to my mind right now about what I should ask to really know what you're going to get. Because ultimately, as you say, all you really care about is solving the problem. Like you just want to knock it out of the park. I joined this coaching program, I knock it out of the park. If it's a business coaching program, I need to get the promise, right? So like my lower tier coaching programs, it's like $10,000 a month doing video work, right? I'm going to get you there. Join me. I'm going to get you there. That's all you should care about. You shouldn't really care about anything else. Can I get you that result? For the higher tier, it's 3Xing their business, right? To ideally 6 figures a month. Can I get you there? Can I not get you there? What is it? It's all about that promise.
I think you brought up a couple of really good things there. It reminds me of, I had this friend in my mid-20s. He's like, whenever a girl says she wants to be boyfriend, girlfriend, I always go, well, what does that mean? And I learned from that everyone has a different definition. And I didn't realize until that moment. And the same thing here is like, everyone's definition of coaching is totally different. Like to me, if I was in a program where the only coaching was talking to each other in a Facebook group, I would be like, this isn't coaching, right? Like, so I think it is an important question because, and some people want that and some people don't. And it's so important to realize that everyone's definition of coaching is different, because I've seen coaching programs where you can email in your questions and then once a month live, he answers the questions on a live stream. I was like, what's like a mailbag, right?
Yeah,
like
I wouldn't want that.
That's like a podcast episode when you've run out of content. And that's kind of what people enjoyed that program. So you never know. I think that's really important, is to understand like exactly what's the beginning and the end point. Because I think about the questions that drive me crazy when I'm trying to sell coaching. Like the one that drives me the craziest is like, can I speak to other coaching clients? Every time I've ever let someone do that, I've regretted it.
Oh,
like,
I always say no. You have to say no.
I know it's the ultimate. The best lesson I could give you is I've never had someone I let talk to a previous client. I've never had a good experience with that. I've always regretted it. Because what happens is if it's a really big client, if they're like, and I'm talking more than $30,000 this was a client and the deal we were talking about. I let him speak to a previous client. And then as soon as he go, well, can I speak to another previous client? I was like, you know what? It's never going to stop. I was like, what if I let you speak to 100 previous clients? You can ask for 101. I said, this is a different game. I said, if you just want a photocopy of my client book, that's a different conversation. That's what it sounds like is happening here. And so I just learned, unfortunately, the hard way. I wish you told me before this happened, but whenever people ask for that, it's not real, right? They're asking a question that's
it's just an objection. It's like Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like every objection is the same objection. Yep. I don't trust something. I'm not there in some way. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a pretty easy one to counter, honestly. I just say, and this is true, by the way, I have successful students. I don't want them talking to people. Like, it's not going to help. It's not going to help them. It's not going to help me. It's not going to help anybody. But I just say that, listen, this is not part of the deal when students sign up my program. They're not signing up to be sales reps for my program. If you invest in this and become my student, I wouldn't ask you to do that either. It's just not part of the deal. You're here to learn and get the results, and that's it, not be an ambassador for the program, right? So I don't do that by policy, and if they have a problem with that, that's not the reason that they don't buy. There's something else going on behind the scenes that either you need to counter or they're just not going to buy and you're spending time trying to close the unclosable, which is a waste of time.
Yeah. So what's another like red flag question that when you're talking to someone and they want to hire you as a coach, you go, this gives me a bad feeling about this person. I don't want to work with them.
I mean, usually it's hard. Like, I would say the biggest red flag one is like, when someone tries to act like they've already got it all figured out and they just need a tiny tweak to get there, which is never the case, but it's about the mindset that they're in. Because if they're not really committed, then they're not gonna buy. Or if somehow by the grace of whatever, I'm able to convince them to buy, they won't get results because they won't do the work. So I always get a red flag when people come in skeptical and snotty. Like they're just coming in like, oh, listen, I've already got this mostly figured out. I've been able to do this. 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 And, I'm just trying to struggle in this with this one small thing. I think I'm doing pretty good. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. A lot of times you just need to put those people in their place and just clearly investigate. Be like, okay, so tell me more about this. What have you been actually doing, right? And what is the goal you want? And then you create the gap, right? Like, where do you feel like you can reach that alone? And why or why not, right? And then a lot of times they'll back down there and they'll be like, oh, he caught me in a lie. And so that's a good thing because then they'll know that I'll be a good coach because I've caught them in the lie. Never let people lie on sales calls. If you can figure out how to do it, if you can figure out when they're lying, they're usually lying if they're being confident like that. So that's a red flag. If they just don't back down from it, then it's just like a total red flag. Like, why are you even on the phone? They're probably a tire kicker, like somebody who is just going to waste your time and energy and effort. And you don't want to deal with it. I would say that's the biggest red flag. All the red flags, by the way, come through in the first 10 minutes. So if you can get really good at spotting those, you don't have to waste your time as much. If you've gotten through 40, 45 minutes and you're like, oh, the red flag is they don't have any money, that's more like you need to be better at objection handling because that's probably a sales thing. They're not sold on a piece of it. So you got to figure out where that piece is.
I think that's a lot of really good advice for people that are thinking about hiring coaching, people thinking about becoming a coach, people realizing they shouldn't be a coach. And this is really awesome. So where can people, Matt, find out more about what you're doing, especially if they're creatives? Where can they spend more time learning about what you're doing, learning about high ticket coaching, learning about the world in which you dwell and hang out with you online?
I think it'd be good just to go to my site, mattjohnstononline.com, find out everything about me, but get my book and we can talk if you feel like I can help.
So I'll make sure to put that in the show notes and below the video on YouTube so people can find it easily with a clickable link. Thank you so much for being here. This has been very informative and I appreciate you giving us so much of your time today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Starting your blog is an amazing step. Now it's time to get your first 100 raving fans as quickly as possible. Let me show you the shortcut to this milestone with my free guide at servemaster.com/100. That's /100.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Serve No Master podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next week with more tips and tactics on how to escape the rat race. Please take a moment to leave a review at servenomaster.com/iTunes. It helps the show grow, and more listeners means more content for you. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.